So if you've been looking for journalists that actually post about specific topics, but you couldn't actually find the right tool to do that, and specifically the right tool that has real-time data that is always being updated. So at Perigon, we recently created this new tool in here that we call Perigon Journalist Explorer that will help you to pick up a specific topic from the Perigon database that has a huge list of topics available, and it can actually go ahead and rank and sort for you the top journalists that you're looking for by reach. And by reach, I mean their top sources' monthly visitors. So to access the tool, you can head over to journalist-explorer.vercel.app. You're gonna find the link attached with the video. And once you're there, you can actually find the first version of the Perigon Journalist Explorer, and the first thing it's gonna ask you about is actually your Perigon API key. So make sure to head over to your Perigon dashboard, copy the API key and paste it right over here and hit save. And you only need to do that once, then it's gonna actually be saved for you. Of course, if you ever want to change the API key, you can just head over to settings on top in here and paste your new API key in here and hit save. All right, perfect. So the interface in here is pretty simple. All you gotta do in here, you got a list that is populated with the recent topics from the Perigon database that is real time and always being up to date. So you can search through all the available topics in here. For example, I can just go and search for AI. So the interface in here is very simple. So you got a drop down in here or a list of all the topics populated from the Perigon database where you can view all the real-time updated topics list. So for example, I'm gonna actually go and choose or search for AI in here, the AI topic. I'm gonna select it, gonna find it selected right over here, and I'm gonna hit search. So this will actually go and start the searching process of like all the journalists. Then it's actually going to display for you a full list of all the journalists available. And if you can notice in here, all the journalists are sorted in a descending way by their reach. So for example, this is 28 billion, then 7 billion, 3.8 billion, and it goes down. So the full list in here is actually scrollable because there is too many journalists in here to fit on a whole web page that you can scroll with this one freely. And you can click on every single one of these journalists. It has a collapsible in here, so you can click to open the collapsible to know or get more information. So for example, I can go and check out Chris in here. So here first, it tells you the title of the journalist, and it lists for you the top sources where the journalist actually posts. For example, Yahoo News, Investor Place, Business Insider, and all the available top sources in here. And it actually gives you the reach of every single source. Of course, by the reach in here, we mean the monthly visitors of every single source. For example, the Yahoo News in here or the ca.finance.yahoo.com for like the specific domain has a reach of 3.5 billion monthly visitors. And the total reach of the journalist is actually calculated by doing the sum of all of its top sources' reach. And last but not least, you're going to find the top topics the journalists that post about. And the awesome part about this one is actually you can go ahead and click on every single one of these. For example, I want to check out about cryptocurrency. So I can click on cryptocurrency in here and the tool will go ahead and actually choose cryptocurrency as a topic and refresh everything and list for you all the top journalists for cryptocurrency. Now, if you scroll down a little bit in here, you're going to find the bar chart of the ranked top 10 journalists. So on the y-axis in here, you're going to find their total reach in here, and the x-axis, you're going to find the journalist's name. So you can use this tool to find the top journalists about a specific topic, and most importantly, those journalists or the reach of the journalists and all the data is updated thanks to the Perigon real-time API. Now, if you don't like dark mode or if you're a fan of a light mode, you can actually switch between dark mode and light mode from the top over there. So now you can head over to journalist-explorer.vercel.app. You're going to find a link in the description below to actually access the tool and start experimenting with it. And of course, we would love some feedback to let us know how you want to use the tool, if there are any new features we want to add, or if there is anything wrong with the tool. Now, if you want to see how we build this tool, it's actually open source and it's hosted on the Perigon GitHub account. So you can access journalist-ranking. This is actually the repository. It has all the source code of the application. It's built using Next.js and literally has all the logic over there. So if you want to learn how we did it, how we built this one, you're going to find the link in the description below of this current repository. You can go and click on it, clone it, and play around with it however you like. All right, so let's go ahead and check out how we build this tool behind the scenes and check out the source code and how everything works together. So the project in here is built using Next.js. This is actually the full projects of Next.js that has the app directory in here, has hooks, components, lib, services, stores, and types. And the projects, of course, uses TypeScript. So the first thing in here is actually the page.csx. This is the main homepage where you're going to find the title like Perigon, Journalist Explorer. And we got two main components, the topic form and the journalist view. So the topic form in here is actually the main form where all the logic happens, where the fetching is happening, form handling, sorting, and ranking of the journalists. So if you're familiar with Next.js, we're actually using use client in here because there's a lot of client heavy sort of handling happening in here. And we're actually using for state managers, we're using a global store, we're using a library called Zeus10 for this. So we actually handled all of that in here. And the most important part that you need to know more is actually first we fetch all the topics. So once we load the web page, we need to go into the database and fetch all the topics using the topics endpoint from Perigon. So choosing him using this function with cache topics and I'm passing the Perigon service.get all topics. So if you look into it, this is the Perigon service where all the fetching is happening and we're doing this get all topics to go ahead into the /topics or api.goperigon.com v1 /topics, and the size in here, I'm trying to fetch all the topics. And of course, this function in here will allow you to cache the topics on the local storage, so you don't have to fetch it every single time, but the storage or the cache is expirable, so it expires every single day to make sure you always get the up-to-date real-time topics. Alright, the next thing in here is actually this function where get journalists with sources. This is basically where all the magic and ranking and sorting and stuff happens, where we get the journalists, they get the sources, and we rank them by reach. So if you notice in here, the first thing we do is actually get journalist by topic, which is this method in here that it takes the topics and it uses the journalist endpoint right over here to pass it a topic in here and actually make sure to fetch all the journalists that are for this topic. So once we do that, we go to the next most important step in here where we loop through all the fetched journalists and we grab their top sources right over here and we loop through all the top sources and we create this sort of fetch source promise where we do get source by domain. So we bring all the sources of this current journalist, we put it in a promise in here and we push it inside of this array for fetch source promise. So the reason why doing this and not waiting for a promise is actually to make sure we're performantly handling all these sources and we're fetching them all at once, like concurrently, without like doing a sequential sort of fetching because that would hurt the performance. And we make sure we fetch all of them together using promise.all fetch sources promises. And this will lend us all the available sources in here. So once we do that, we can actually go ahead and do another for loop in here inside of the sources and the journalists to actually calculate the monthly visitors or the reach of every single journalist. And we push it inside of an array so we can have the final piece of data. And once we're done, just pushing the journalists, sources, and their reach. As simple as that. So the rest of the components just basically like GSX rendering and handling everything. And of course, for the UI in here, we're using ShadCN because it has really nice, awesome components that is very simple. Everything is hosted inside of the components UI where we literally using most of their available UI components already right over here. Now, to quickly take a look on how we did the fetching behind there using the Perigon endpoint. So we use first the topics endpoint, so topics /o to grab all the available topics and populate the list with all the available topics. Second, we go ahead and actually use the journalist endpoint and we pass in a specific topic the user selects. For example, the user selects AI in here. So we pass in the topic AI parameter right over here to make sure we fetch all the journalists that post about AI. So once we do that, we're going to get all the journalist list in here. Then we access the top sources of every single journalist. So for example, this journalist has top sources, a name of that particular source called Forbes.com and a count like how many articles have been published on Forbes. And later on, we use the last kind of endpoint, which is called /sources to fetch all the sources of every single journalist. And to do that, we just pass in the name in here, which is like the domain name of every single source that the journalist has, or the top sources of a particular journalist. We pass it over there and we get all the sources. So for example, if we look at this source, the JSON data that is all being returned, like top categories, the location, the name, the domain name. If you scroll a little bit down in here, you're going to find the monthly visitors. And this is basically like an updated real-time sort of count of the monthly visitors of this particular source. So this way we can calculate the total reach of every single journalist. Now, if you're curious to know how we built that sharding and the bar chart for ranking the journalists on a bar chart, we're actually using a library called rechart. So if you go ahead and access journalist reach chart and access the index.typescript in here, we got this rechart. And we actually basically just, importing all the bar chart stuff, the x-axis, y-axis. There's actually a really awesome React library for building charts that is super, super intuitive and easy to use. So So we simply just go ahead and use the GSX in here. We loop through data we have already, like grabbing the first name, last name of the actual journalist, the reach of the journalist, and we just go ahead and plot it in here and render it very easily. So you can read the full source code to understand a little bit more how we did that. All right, so thank you guys. Thank you for watching. Hope you guys are going to enjoy the tools. If any feedback, let me know. And make sure to join our Discord server to be the first to know about new tools we release, YouTube videos or tutorials, and awesome stuff we do on the server.